The night rests softly over the land, and the wide river moves in silence, carrying its dark water through fields and villages that seem to be asleep without effort, as if the earth itself has closed its eyes for a little while. Above, the sky is deep and endless, scattered with quiet stars that shine without flicker, and below them the Nile flows with a slow and steady motion, touching the reeds along its edges again and again, making a sound so gentle that it feels more like a memory than a noise. The air is cool, and there is a stillness that feels complete. Nothing rushes here. Nothing needs to. Along the riverbank, small homes made of sun-dried mud bricks rest close together, their flat roofs catching the last traces of night, their walls holding the warmth of the day that has already passed. And inside those homes, people lie in quiet sleep, wrapped in simple linen, breathing slowly as the hours drift by. But not everyone sleeps until the sun. There are a few who wake earlier, not because they must hurry, but because their day begins with a kind of quiet discipline that has been learned over many years, a rhythm that feels as natural as the turning of the sky. In one of these homes, a man opens his eyes. He does not move at once. For a moment, he simply rests, listening. The faint sound of the river reaches him through the walls, soft and distant, and somewhere outside, a bird shifts in its place, not yet ready to sing, just aware that morning is slowly approaching. The man breathes in, steady and calm, and then, without any rush, he sits up. He is not a farmer, though the fields lie not far away. He is not a builder, though great stones rise in other places along the river. He is a scribe. His work is quiet, but it fills the day. He rises slowly, placing his feet on the cool floor, and for a moment he stands still again, allowing his body to wake fully, as if even this small act deserves patience. There is no loud beginning to his day, no sudden movement, only a gradual shift from rest into awareness. He reaches for a small cloth, washing his face with water that feels cool against his skin, and then he steps outside, where the first pale light is just beginning to appear at the edge of the world. The horizon holds a faint glow, not yet bright, but enough to soften the darkness. The village is still quiet. A few doors remain closed. A few shapes move slowly in the distance, other early risers beginning their own gentle routines. The scribe walks a short distance and then sits down upon the ground, which is smooth and firm beneath him, shaped by many footsteps over many days, and there he arranges the simple tools that will accompany him for hours. His wooden palette rests across his lap. Small wells carved into its surface hold dark ink and red ink, both carefully prepared, both used for different kinds of marks. Beside him lies a roll of papyrus, pale and softly textured, made from the tall plants that grow along the river's edge, pressed and dried into a surface that can hold the flow of written thought. He takes a reed brush into his hand. It is light, familiar, worn just enough to feel comfortable. For a moment, he does nothing. He simply sits, looking out toward the river, where the light is growing slowly stronger, and the surface of the water begins to reflect the sky in a soft, muted way. This pause is not wasted time. It is part of the rhythm. Then, gently, he lowers the brush into the ink. He lifts it, and he begins to write. The first marks of the day appear quietly on the papyrus, small and careful, each one placed with steady attention, forming shapes that carry sound and meaning,
shapes that have been learned through long practice and repeated again and again until they feel almost natural. His hand moves slowly, but without hesitation. Dip into ink, lift, touch the surface, draw the line. Then again, dip, lift, draw. The motion continues, calm and even, like breathing that does not need to be noticed. Around him, the world begins to wake. A door opens somewhere behind him, the sound soft against the still air, and footsteps follow, unhurried, moving across the ground with a quiet rhythm. Another person walks toward the river, carrying a clay jar, the weight of it balanced carefully, the path already familiar beneath their feet. A faint voice rises, then fades again. Nothing disturbs the calm. The scribe continues to write. He does not look up often. His attention rests on the lines before him, on the careful shaping of each symbol, on the spacing between them, on the way the ink settles into the fibers of the papyrus. This is not hurried work. It cannot be. Each mark must be clear. Each line must be true. He has learned this over many years, beginning when he was very young, sitting in a place not unlike this one, watching the hand of his teacher move across the surface of the page, copying each motion again and again until his hand could follow without trembling. Those early days were long. They were filled with repetition, the same symbols written many times, the same lines corrected gently again and again. But over time, something changed. The movements became smoother, the shapes became clearer, and slowly, without any sudden moment, he became what he is now, a scribe. The light grows stronger. The sky shifts from pale gray to soft gold, and the sun begins to rise above the horizon, its warmth spreading slowly across the land, touching the tops of the palm trees first, then the walls of the homes, and finally the ground where the scribe sits. He feels the warmth, but he does not stop. His work continues. The papyrus begins to fill. Line after line, the surface changes from empty space into ordered marks, each one placed with care, each one part of a larger whole that records something important, something that must be remembered. Perhaps it is a list, perhaps it is a record of goods, perhaps it is a message to be carried elsewhere. Whatever it is, it matters enough to be written. And so he writes. Time moves gently forward. The sounds of the village grow a little more present, though still soft, still distant, as if they belong to another layer of the world, one that does not quite reach him where he sits. A breeze passes lightly, moving the edge of the papyrus just enough to remind him of the open air, and he adjusts it with a small motion of his hand, then continues. There is no need to think about how long the day will be. There is no need to hurry toward its end. This moment is enough. This line, this mark, this quiet beginning. And as the sun continues its slow rise and the shadows begin to shorten, the scribe remains where he is, steady and calm, writing as he has done before and as he will do again, letting the day unfold around him, one gentle moment at a time.
The light continues to grow, slowly and without interruption, spreading across the land in a way that feels almost gentle, as if the day itself is careful not to disturb the quiet rhythm that has already begun. The scribe remains seated where he is, his posture steady, his movements small and precise, and the papyrus before him now holds several lines of writing, each one placed with the same calm attention as the first, as though time itself has no weight here, only a soft, continuous flow. The sun has risen fully now, though it is still early, and its warmth rests lightly on the earth, not yet strong, not yet heavy, but enough to bring a sense of wakefulness to everything it touches. Around him, the village has begun to move in a more noticeable way. More doors open, more footsteps pass along the paths. Voices, still quiet, begin to form brief exchanges, short and simple, carried softly through the morning air before fading again into stillness. A child walks past, barefoot, pausing for just a moment to look at the scribe, watching the movement of the brush with a kind of quiet curiosity, before being called away by a voice that does not sound far, yet does not break the calm. The scribe does not look up, not because he is unaware, but because his focus rests fully on the task before him, on the careful shaping of each sign, on the slow and steady building of something that must be clear and lasting. His hand continues its rhythm. Dip into ink, lift, press gently against the papyrus, draw the line. Then again. Each motion is almost identical to the one before it, yet never careless, never rushed, each one carrying a quiet intention that has been practiced over many years. The brush itself is simple, made from a cut reed, its tip softened and shaped by use, and though it is not a grand tool, it holds within it the ability to record thoughts, names, numbers, and events, turning them into something that will remain long after the moment has passed. Beside him, the small wells of ink rest patiently. The black ink is deep and steady, used for most of the writing, while the red ink waits for moments that require attention, for headings, for beginnings, for emphasis that must stand out from the rest. From time to time, the scribe pauses just long enough to shift the brush from one color to the other, making a mark that breaks the quiet flow of black with a touch of red, like a soft signal within the lines. The papyrus beneath his hand feels familiar. Its surface, though smooth, carries a faint texture that guides the movement of the brush, helping to keep each line steady, each symbol clear. As one section fills, he moves slightly, unrolling a bit more, allowing space for the work to continue, while the completed lines rest quietly behind him, already part of the past. The river continues its slow movement nearby. Though he does not look toward it often, its presence is constant, its soft sound blending with the distant motions of the village, creating a background that never fully disappears, a kind of quiet foundation beneath everything else. A breeze moves again, slightly stronger this time, carrying with it the faint scent of water and earth, and the scribe adjusts his position just enough to keep the papyrus steady, his movements small, practiced, and without any sense of interruption. Time passes, though it does not feel like passing. It feels more like unfolding. Each moment arrives gently, stays for a while, and then gives way to the next, without sharp edges, without sudden change. The shadows begin to shorten, the light becomes brighter, the air warms a little more, and still the scribe writes. At some point, another figure approaches. This time it is a man carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth, held carefully in both hands, as though what lies inside carries some importance. He steps closer, his footsteps slow and measured, and when he reaches the scribe, he stops and waits for a brief moment, allowing the current line of writing to be completed before speaking. The scribe finishes the mark he is making, lifts the brush, and then looks up. Their exchange is quiet, a few words spoken calmly. The bundle is placed gently beside the writing tools, and with a small nod, the man steps away again, leaving as quietly as he arrived.
The scribe turns his attention to the bundle. He unwraps it slowly, revealing more papyrus already marked with writing, though not in his own hand. These are records from elsewhere, notes that must be checked, copied, or perhaps corrected. He studies them for a moment, his eyes moving across the lines, taking in the shapes, the spacing, the flow of the writing, as if listening to a voice that speaks without sound. Then, without any sense of urgency, he begins again. He places a fresh section of papyrus before him. He dips the brush, and he writes. This time, the work is more careful in a different way. He is not simply recording, he is observing, comparing, ensuring that what is written here matches what has been written before. His movements slow just slightly, not out of hesitation, but out of precision. Each symbol is formed with attention. Each line is checked. If something does not match, he pauses, looking closely, tracing the shapes with his eyes, until the meaning becomes clear, and then he continues, adjusting where needed, always with a steady hand. Around him, the village continues its gentle activity. The sound of grinding grain begins somewhere nearby, a soft, repetitive motion that rises and falls in a slow rhythm. Water is poured from one vessel to another. Footsteps cross paths, then separate again. All of it blends together into a quiet pattern of daily life. But the scribe remains within his own rhythm. His world, in this moment, is the space between the brush and the papyrus, the place where thought becomes form, where memory becomes record. The sun climbs higher, the warmth deepens, the light grows more direct, and still, without hurry, without pause beyond what is needed, he continues his work, allowing the morning to pass not as something to be measured, but as something to be lived, one careful line at a time.
As the morning settles into its fuller form, the light becomes stronger, though it still carries a softness that has not yet turned into the weight of midday, and the air, while warmer now, continues to move gently, as if the land itself is breathing in a slow and steady rhythm. The scribe remains where he sits, though his position has shifted slightly over time, small adjustments made without thought, guided only by comfort and habit, and the papyrus before him now holds many lines, each one quietly joining the next, forming a record that stretches longer with every passing moment. There is no clear beginning or end to his work, only continuation. The brush moves again, dip into ink, lift, touch, draw. The motion is so familiar now that it seems to exist without effort, as if the hand remembers even when the mind is still, as if the act of writing has become something deeper than simple movement. Nearby, the sounds of the village have grown a little more present, though they never become loud, never sharp, always softened by distance and by the slow pace of the day. A group of voices passes for a brief moment, speaking in low tones, their words carried lightly through the air before fading again. A donkey moves along the path, its steps steady, its presence quiet and unremarkable, part of the same pattern that repeats each day without change. The scribe does not turn toward these things. He does not need to. They exist around him, but his attention remains where it has been since the first light appeared, resting on the careful shaping of each symbol, on the steady building of something that must be clear and lasting. From time to time he pauses, not for long, just enough to look over what he has written, to let his eyes move slowly across the lines, checking for balance, for clarity, for the small details that might otherwise be missed. His gaze is patient. He does not rush this part. The writing must be correct. It must be readable not only now, but later, perhaps much later, when someone else in another place will look upon these same marks and understand them.
After a brief pause, he returns to the work. The brush dips again. The line continues. The sun climbs higher still. Its light now falls more directly upon the ground, and the warmth begins to settle more deeply into the earth, rising in a way that can be felt even in the shade, though it is not yet heavy enough to slow the body or the mind. A faint shimmer begins to appear in the distance, where the land stretches out beyond the village, a soft wavering that makes the air seem almost fluid, though here, close to the river, the presence of water keeps everything more gentle, more balanced. The scribe's tools remain arranged with quiet care. The palette rests securely. The inks are still. The extra reeds lie within reach, though he has not yet needed to replace the one he holds, its tip still steady, still capable of forming the fine lines that his work requires. The bundle that was brought earlier now sits partially unwrapped beside him, and from time to time he glances toward it, checking a line, comparing a symbol, ensuring that what he writes here matches what has been written elsewhere. This is part of his role, not only to write, but to preserve accuracy, to ensure that what is recorded remains true. There is a quiet responsibility in this. It does not weigh heavily, but it is always present, like a steady awareness that follows each movement of the hand. A small shadow passes briefly across the papyrus, a bird, perhaps, crossing overhead. The scribe pauses for just a moment, allowing the shadow to move on, and then continues, his rhythm unchanged. The passage of time is marked not by numbers or by spoken acknowledgement, but by the slow shift of light, by the way the air feels against the skin, by the gentle changes that occur without announcement. As the morning moves closer to midday, the village begins to slow slightly. The early energy softens, movements become less frequent, more people seek the shade. The sounds that were once more active now settle into longer spaces of quiet. The scribe, too, feels this change, though it does not alter his work. He simply adjusts. His posture shifts again, just enough to remain comfortable. His breathing remains steady. His hand continues. There is a kind of stillness now that feels deeper than before, not empty, but full in a quiet way, as if everything has found its place within the day. The papyrus grows heavier with ink. The lines extend further. The record continues to take shape. And through it all, the scribe remains as he has been since the first light touched the horizon, present, calm, and attentive, allowing the hours to pass not as something to be counted, but as something to move through, one careful mark at a time. The sun rises a little more. The shadows draw closer beneath the objects that cast them. The air warms again just slightly, and in this gentle approach toward midday, nothing changes suddenly. Everything simply continues. And the scribe writes.
As the sun reaches higher into the sky, the light becomes more direct, more present, settling over the land with a steady warmth that no longer feels like a gentle beginning, but instead like a quiet fullness, a moment in the day where everything seems to pause without truly stopping. The village grows still in a different way now, not silent, but slower. The movements that filled the early morning begin to fade into longer stretches of rest, and many who had been walking or working have stepped into the shade, where the air feels softer, where the brightness of the sun does not press so strongly against the eyes. The scribe has also moved, not far, only a short distance into the shelter of an interior space, where the walls hold back some of the heat and the light enters in a more controlled, softened form, spreading gently across the floor and the surface where he now works. He settles again with quiet familiarity. The tools are placed before him in almost the same arrangement as before, as though each part of his work carries its own place, its own order that does not need to be spoken. The papyrus is unrolled slightly. The brush rests lightly in his hand.
For a brief moment he does not begin. He sits still, allowing the shift from open air to shaded space to settle around him, feeling the difference in the air, the way the sounds of the outside world now reach him in a more distant and softened way. The river is still there, of course, its presence never leaves, but now its sound feels further away, as if it belongs to another layer of the day, one that continues on its own steady path. Inside, the quiet is deeper. There are faint sounds, the small movement of another person nearby, the soft placement of an object, the distant murmur of voices that do not carry clearly, but none of these disturb the stillness. They simply exist within it. The scribe lowers his brush into the ink once more. He lifts it, and he begins again. The marks appear slowly, each one formed with the same care as before, though now there is a subtle difference, not in the movement of his hand, but in the feeling of the moment itself. Midday carries a certain weight, not heavy in a way that burdens, but steady, full, as though the day has reached a point where it simply exists without needing to move forward too quickly. The writing continues, dip, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains unchanged, but the pace of the world around him has softened, and in that softness the act of writing feels even more contained, more focused, as if the space between each movement has grown slightly wider. Nearby, another scribe sits as well, working in the same quiet manner, his own papyrus spread before him, his own brush moving with similar care, though each hand carries its own small differences, its own subtle way of forming the same familiar signs. They do not speak. Their silence is not empty. It is shared, a kind of understanding that does not require words. From time to time, one of them shifts, the faint sound of fabric moving, the gentle adjustment of position, and then the stillness returns again. The air inside the room holds a faint scent of ink and papyrus, mixed with the dry warmth of the walls, a quiet presence that lingers without drawing attention. The scribe continues his work with steady attention. Now the writing before him is more structured, lines arranged in careful order, numbers placed beside symbols, records that must remain clear and exact. He pauses briefly at one point, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studies a section more closely, comparing it with the earlier notes that lie beside him. There is no frustration in this moment, only patience. He traces the lines again with his gaze. He adjusts one mark, gently, precisely. Then he continues. Outside, the brightness of the sun reaches its peak. The ground holds the heat. The air becomes stiller. Fewer footsteps pass, fewer voices rise. Even the animals move less, seeking rest where they can find it. But inside, the work goes on. The scribe does not rush to finish. There is no sense of needing to complete everything before the day ends. His task is not to hurry. His task is to continue, to carry the flow of writing, to carry the record forward, one line at a time, as it has always been done. A small sound breaks the quiet for a moment, a play cup being set down. Someone has brought water. The scribe pauses just long enough to reach for it, lifting it slowly, taking a measured drink, the coolness offering a brief contrast to the warmth of the air, and then he sets it back down, exactly where it was placed. No extra movement, no distraction. The brush returns to the ink. The writing continues. Time does not feel like passing here. It feels like resting within itself. The middle of the day holds everything in a kind of balance where nothing pushes forward too quickly and nothing falls behind. And within that balance, the scribe remains steady, his hand moving across the papyrus with quiet purpose, his mind calm, his body still, as the hours of midday unfold around him, without sound, without hurry, and without end.
The stillness of midday lingers for a while.
as if the day itself is resting in place, neither moving forward nor falling back, but simply existing in a calm and steady balance where everything feels settled and complete. Inside the shaded room, the air remains warm, though not harsh, and the light that enters through the small opening has softened, spreading across the floor in a pale and gentle way, no longer sharp, no longer bright, but quiet and even. The scribe continues to write. His hand moves as it has all day, guided by memory and practice, by a rhythm that no longer needs attention, a rhythm that exists on its own, like the steady flow of the river beyond the walls. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The motion repeats again and again, without strain, without interruption, each line joining the next in a quiet and orderly way, building something that grows slowly but never feels rushed. The papyrus has grown longer now. Much of it is filled with careful writing, the earlier lines resting behind him, the fresh space before him slowly becoming marked with the same steady hand. From time to time, he shifts the roll slightly, guiding it forward, keeping the working space clear, making room for what comes next, while what has already been written remains untouched, settled into its place. The other scribe nearby continues as well, though his movements are slightly slower now, not from fatigue, but from the natural slowing that comes with the deeper part of the day, when the air is warm and the body prefers stillness over motion. Neither of them speaks. The quiet between them has deepened, becoming something more than silence, something that feels like a shared understanding of the work, of the pace, of the way the day unfolds without needing to be guided. Outside, the village rests. The sounds have faded to almost nothing. A distant movement here and there, a faint call carried briefly on the air, but most things have settled into shade and stillness, waiting for the sun to begin its slow descent. Even the river seems quieter, though it continues to flow as it always does, its steady motion unchanged, its presence constant, a quiet line that moves through everything without pause. The scribe pauses for a moment. His hand rests lightly above the papyrus. He looks over the lines he has just written, his eyes moving slowly, not searching for error, but simply observing, allowing the shapes and patterns to settle into his awareness. There is no urgency in this pause. It is not a break. It is part of the work. After a few moments, he lowers the brush again. The writing continues. Now the marks he makes are slightly different, a new section, a new set of entries. He reaches for the red ink briefly, placing a small mark at the beginning of the line, a quiet signal that something has shifted, that this part stands apart in a subtle way from what came before. Then back to the black ink, back to the steady lines. The transition is smooth, unnoticed by anyone but him. Time stretches gently. There is no sense of how much has passed. The movement of the sun is not seen directly from where he sits, but it can be felt in the changing quality of the light, in the slight shift of warmth, in the way the air begins almost imperceptibly to soften. A faint breeze finds its way inside, touching the edge of the papyrus, stirring it just slightly, enough for the scribe to place his hand upon it for a moment, holding it still, and then releasing it again once the air has settled. His movements remain small, measured. Nothing is wasted, nothing is hurried. The clay cup beside him is lifted once more, a slow and quiet motion, another small drink of water, and then it is set down again, returning to stillness. The tools remain where they are, the palette, the inks, the extra reeds, all of it part of a quiet arrangement that supports the work without drawing attention. The scribe continues, line after line, mark after mark. The record grows. The afternoon has not yet fully arrived,
but it approaches slowly, carried on the subtle changes that only time itself can bring. The deep stillness of midday begins to ease, just slightly, as if the day is preparing to move again, to shift into its next quiet phase. But for now the moment holds. The scribe remains steady within it. His hand moves, the ink settles, the papyrus fills, and the long, quiet stretch of the day continues, unbroken, unhurried, and gently complete in every small and careful line.
Slowly, almost without being noticed, the day begins to shift. The stillness of midday does not end all at once, but instead softens at its edges, as if the quiet weight that rested over the land has begun to lift just slightly, making room for movement to return in a calm and gradual way. Inside the shaded room, the light changes first. It becomes less direct, less fixed, and begins to stretch gently across the floor at a new angle, forming longer shapes that move so slowly they can only be understood by waiting, by remaining still long enough to see that time has, in fact, continued forward. The scribe does not look toward the light, but he senses the change. It is there in the air, in the feeling of the space around him, in the quiet way his body adjusts, just slightly, as if responding to something that does not need to be named. His work continues. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains unchanged, though the world around it has begun to move again. Outside there are more sounds now, not loud, not sudden, but present. Footsteps return to the paths, soft but steady. Voices rise again in low conversation, carried gently by the afternoon air. Somewhere nearby, the faint sound of work begins again, the movement of tools, the shifting of objects, all of it blending into a quiet pattern that feels familiar, as though the village itself has taken a slow breath and opened its eyes once more. The scribe pauses briefly, his brush hovering above the papyrus as he listens, not with distraction, but with quiet awareness, allowing the sounds to pass through his attention without pulling him away from his task. Then, as always, he continues. The lines before him grow longer. The space of the page becomes filled with the steady marks of his hand, each one carrying its place, each one part of a larger order that extends beyond what can be seen in a single moment. Beside him, the other scribe shifts slightly, the faint sound of movement returning to the room, and for a brief moment their work aligns in a quiet harmony, two brushes moving at once, two sets of lines forming side by side, separate but connected in their purpose. A small breeze passes through the opening again, a little cooler now, carrying with it the scent of water and distant earth, and it lingers for just a moment before moving on, leaving the air calm once more. The scribe reaches for another reed. The one he has been using has worn slightly, its tip no longer as fine as before, and without hesitation, without any sense of interruption, he sets it aside and picks up a new one, testing it with a small, careful stroke upon the edge of the papyrus. The line is clean. He continues. The transition is seamless. His hand adapts at once. The work does not pause. The bundle of records beside him is now more open, more fully revealed, and from time to time he glances toward it, drawing from it what is needed, copying, comparing, ensuring that nothing is lost in the process, that each detail is carried forward with care. This is how knowledge moves, not in sudden leaps, but in quiet transfers, from one hand to the next, from one page to the next. The sun lowers slightly. Though still high, it has begun its slow descent, and with it the light takes on a softer quality, less intense,
more gentle, as if the day is beginning to relax again after its long stillness. The village responds in kind. More movement now, more quiet activity. People return to their tasks, though without haste, without strain, moving in a way that matches the easing of the heat, the return of comfort to the air. The scribe remains within his steady rhythm. There is no need for him to match the changes outside. His work follows its own quiet path, one that moves forward regardless of the shifting light, the changing sounds, the gentle return of motion. He writes, and writes, and writes. The repetition is not tiring, it is grounding. Each line brings a sense of completion, even as it leads into the next, creating a flow that continues without end, without interruption, without the need to reach a final point. A faint sound comes from outside, laughter, soft and brief, carried lightly through the air before fading again into the background. The scribe does not react, but the sound exists within the moment, part of the quiet life that surrounds him, part of the world that continues even as he remains focused on the small and careful marks before him. The papyrus shifts again, another section unrolled, more space to fill, more lines to form. The brush moves steadily, the ink settles into the fibers, the record continues to grow. And as the afternoon unfolds, slowly and gently, the scribe remains exactly where he is, steady and calm, his work unbroken, his presence quiet, allowing the turning of the day to pass around him like a slow and endless current.
The afternoon moves forward in a quiet and patient way, as if it has no need to arrive anywhere in particular, and the light, once strong and steady, now begins to soften at its edges, spreading across the land with a warmth that feels calmer, more forgiving, more at ease. Inside the room, the change is gentle but clear. The brightness that once filled the space has begun to fade into something softer, something that rests lightly on the walls and the floor, creating longer shadows that stretch slowly, almost without movement, as if time itself has slowed to match the quiet of the moment. The scribe continues to write. His hand has not lost its rhythm. If anything, it feels even more settled now, as though the long hours of the day have shaped it into something that moves without effort, without thought, guided only by habit and quiet attention. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The pattern repeats. Each motion flows into the next, creating a steady line of work that extends across the papyrus, forming a record that grows longer and more complete with every passing moment. There is no sense of nearing an end, only continuation. The air has cooled just slightly, not enough to be noticed at once, but enough to bring a sense of ease, a soft relief after the deeper warmth of midday, and with it comes a quiet return of life beyond the walls. Footsteps pass more often now. Voices rise again, still low, still calm, but more frequent, as if the village has gently awakened once more from its midday rest. Somewhere outside, water is poured. A vessel is set down. A brief exchange of words is carried on the air, then fades again into the background. The scribe hears these things, but they do not draw him away. They exist beside his work, not within it. His attention remains where it has always been, resting on the surface of the papyrus, on the careful placement of each mark, on the quiet responsibility of recording what must be remembered. Beside him, the other scribe has paused. His hands rest in his lap, his gaze lowered toward his work, as if he is allowing a brief moment of stillness to settle between the lines he has written. There is no sign of fatigue, only a quiet pause. After a short time, he reaches again for his brush.
and the writing resumes. The shared rhythm returns, 2 hands moving, 2 sets of lines forming, separate but in harmony. The scribe shifts slightly, adjusting the position of the papyrus, guiding it forward with care, keeping the surface smooth, ensuring that each new line has its place, its space to exist clearly and without crowding. His fingers move lightly along the edge, holding it steady as the brush moves across it once more. The tools around him remain unchanged. The palette still rests across his lap. The inkwells hold their quiet depth. The extra reeds lie nearby, ready but untouched for now. Everything is as it has been, and in that sameness there is a kind of comfort, a quiet assurance that nothing has been lost, nothing has been disturbed. The sun lowers further. Though still above the horizon, it has begun to move toward its resting place, and the quality of the light shifts again, becoming warmer, softer, carrying a faint golden tone that spreads gently across the land. Inside, this change is felt in the way the shadows lengthen, in the way the light touches the edges of the room, rather than filling it fully. The scribe pauses for a moment, not because he must, but because the line he has been writing has reached its natural end. He lifts the brush. He looks down at what he has written. His eyes move slowly across the symbols, taking them in, not with judgment, but with quiet recognition, as if acknowledging the work that has been done. Then, with a small motion, he reaches for the red ink. A single mark is placed, a subtle sign that this section is complete. He returns to the black ink and begins again. The transition is seamless, unbroken. Time continues to pass in this quiet way. The sounds outside grow a little more present, though never overwhelming, never sharp, always softened by distance and by the slow pace of the day. A breeze enters once more, slightly cooler now, carrying with it the scent of the river, a faint reminder of the water that flows steadily beyond the walls, unchanged by the passing hours. The scribe feels it briefly against his skin. Then it is gone. His work remains, line after line, mark after mark. The papyrus fills, the record grows, and as the light continues to soften and the afternoon begins its slow movement toward evening, the scribe remains steady, his presence quiet and grounded, his hand moving with the same calm rhythm that has carried him from the first light of morning into this gentle and fading part of the day.
The light continues to soften, almost as if it is resting upon the land rather than shining over it, and the long stretch of the afternoon begins to ease into something quieter, something that feels closer to rest, though the day has not yet ended. The shadows now reach further across the ground, stretching slowly, gently, as if they are being drawn outward by an unseen hand, and the warmth in the air begins to loosen, no longer holding as firmly as it did before. Inside the room, the change is subtle but constant. The light that once filled the space now arrives at an angle, touching only certain parts of the walls, leaving others in a calm and steady dimness. And within that soft balance of light and shadow, the scribe continues his work without interruption. His hand moves as it always has, steady, careful, unhurried. The brush glides across the surface of the papyrus, leaving behind each mark with quiet certainty, each symbol placed exactly where it belongs, forming lines that now carry the weight of the entire day's effort. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains, unchanged. There is a sense now, not of finishing, but of slowing, not in the movement of his hand, but in the feeling of the world around him,
as though everything is preparing to settle, to draw inward, to release the energy of the day in a quiet and natural way. Outside, the village begins to gather itself again. More voices can be heard now, though still soft, still calm, carried on the cooler air that has begun to move more freely between the homes and along the paths. Footsteps pass more frequently. A group of people moves together, their conversation low and steady, fading as they continue on their way. Somewhere a child speaks, then laughs briefly, the sound light and short, disappearing almost as soon as it arrives. The scribe does not turn, but these sounds exist beside him, part of the same quiet world in which he works, part of the slow unfolding of the day that he has been present within since its beginning. Beside him, the other scribe pauses once more, setting his brush down gently, his hands resting for a moment as he leans back slightly, allowing a brief stretch to pass through his body. It is a small movement, unnoticed by most, but it carries with it the quiet acknowledgement that the day has been long, that many lines have been written, that the work, though steady and calm, has filled many hours. After a short while, he returns to his position. The brush is lifted again, the writing continues, the shared rhythm remains. The first scribe shifts the papyrus once more. The roll has grown longer, the written portion now much greater than what remains blank, and he guides it carefully, ensuring that the fresh space lies smooth before him, ready to receive the next lines. His fingers move lightly along the edge, holding it steady as he resumes. The ink flows, the marks appear, the record continues to grow. The sun lowers further. Its light now carries a deeper warmth, a golden tone that rests softly upon everything it touches, and though the scribe does not look directly toward it, the change is felt in the way the room glows faintly, in the way the shadows deepen, in the way the air feels cooler with each passing moment. Time has moved forward, quietly, without announcement, and now the day begins its slow descent into evening. The scribe pauses again, just briefly, as he completes another line. He lifts the brush. His eyes follow the shapes he has made, moving across them with quiet attention, as if reading not just the meaning, but the effort, the care, the steady passage of time contained within each mark. There is no need to rush what remains. The work will continue as long as it needs to. He reaches for the red ink once more. A small mark is placed, another quiet division, another gentle structure within the growing record. Then back to black, back to the steady lines. Outside, the air continues to cool. The sounds of the village grow slightly fuller, though never overwhelming, always held within the same calm rhythm that has carried the day from its first light to this quiet hour. A breeze passes again, cooler now, touching the edge of the papyrus, brushing lightly against the scribe's hand, and for a moment everything feels connected. The air, the light, the quiet movement of life beyond the walls, and the steady work within. He continues, line after line, mark after mark. The brush moves, the ink settles, the papyrus fills. And as the slow approach of evening deepens, the scribe remains exactly as he has been all day, present, calm, and unhurried, allowing the final hours of light to pass gently around him, one quiet moment at a time.
The light begins to lower in a way that feels softer now, less like a presence above and more like something resting gently across the land, and the warm gold of the late afternoon deepens into a quieter tone, as if the day itself is slowly closing its eyes. Inside the room, the shadows have grown longer,
stretching across the floor and along the walls in calm, steady lines, and the brightness that once filled the space has settled into a gentle glow that touches only certain places, leaving the rest in a soft and peaceful dimness. The scribe continues to write. His hand has not lost its steadiness. If anything, it has become even more settled, as though the long hours have shaped it into something that moves with quiet certainty, without hesitation, without any need to think about what comes next. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains. It has carried him through the entire day, from the cool stillness of early morning to this calm and fading light, and it continues now unchanged, as though time itself follows the movement of his hand. Outside, the village begins to gather more fully. The sounds are still soft, still calm, but there is a gentle increase in presence, in life returning after the long warmth of the day, as people move once more along the paths, their footsteps slow and unhurried, their voices low and steady. Some carry small bundles, some walk side by side, some pause briefly before continuing on. All of it unfolds without urgency, without sharpness, as if the entire village shares in the same quiet understanding of the day's end. A faint sound of water reaches the room again, a little clearer now as the air cools, the river continuing its endless motion, its steady flow unchanged by the passing hours. The scribe does not look toward it, but its presence remains, a constant thread beneath everything else, a quiet reminder of time that does not stop. Beside him, the other scribe has slowed. His movements are still careful, still precise, but there are longer pauses now between each line, small moments where his hand rests, where his gaze lingers upon the page, as if allowing the work to settle more fully before continuing. The first scribe, too, feels the quiet shift, not as a need to stop, but as a natural easing, a gentle slowing that comes without effort, without decision. He completes another line. He lifts the brush, and for a moment he does not begin again. Instead, he looks over what he has written. His eyes move slowly across the papyrus, following the lines that have been formed throughout the day, each section marked with care, each part connected to the next, forming a continuous record that now carries the weight of many hours. There is no sense of pride, no sense of completion, only recognition, a quiet awareness of what has been done. After a short while, he lowers the brush again. The writing continues. The habit remains. The flow is unbroken. The papyrus shifts once more beneath his hand, another small movement to bring fresh space into place, though now that space is smaller, more limited as the day itself begins to draw closer to its end. The sun lowers further still. Its light now touches the edges of the world more than the center, casting long shadows that stretch across the ground outside, reaching between the homes, across the paths, toward the river. Inside, the room grows dimmer, not dark, but softer, more enclosed, more still. A small lamp has not yet been lit. There is still enough light to see, enough to continue, and so the scribe does not stop. He writes on, dip, lift, press, draw. Each movement slightly slower now, though no less precise, no less careful, as if the hand itself understands that the day is easing, that there is no need to move quickly, no need to reach a final point. Outside, the voices begin to settle again. Some fade into the distance, some quiet entirely. The rhythm of the village shifts once more, this time toward rest, toward the quiet that will return as night approaches. A breeze moves through the room, cooler now, carrying with it the scent of evening, a faint change in the air that speaks of the sun's descent, of the coming stillness.
The scribe feels it briefly, then it passes. His hand continues, the ink flows, the papyrus fills, and as the fading gold of the day softens into something deeper, something quieter, the scribe remains where he is, steady and calm, allowing the final light to linger as long as it can, writing as he had done since the first moment of morning, one careful line at a time.
The light fades a little more with each passing moment. Not suddenly, but in a slow and gentle way, as if the day is carefully placing itself down to rest, one soft movement at a time. The golden tones that once touched everything so warmly begin to soften into deeper shades, and the edges of the room grow dim, while the remaining light lingers in quiet patches upon the floor and along the surface of the papyrus. The scribe continues to write. His hand moves more slowly now, though not from weariness, but from the natural easing that comes as the day draws toward its close, as if each movement carries a little more space between it and the next. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm is still there, but it has softened. It has become quieter, more spaced, like footsteps that slow as they approach home. Outside, the village has begun to settle. The earlier sounds of movement and conversation have faded into something more distant, more scattered, as people return to their homes, their tasks completed, their voices lowered. A faint murmur remains here and there, but it does not carry far. The air itself feels different now, cooler, still, as though it too is resting. The scribe pauses at the end of a line. He lifts the brush and holds it just above the papyrus for a moment, his hand steady, his gaze resting on the marks before him, as if allowing the line to fully exist before moving on. Then, gently, he places the brush down again. The writing continues. The papyrus is nearly full now. Only a small space remains unmarked, a quiet area waiting for the final lines of the day, and the scribe guides it forward with care, ensuring that the surface remains smooth, that nothing shifts out of place. Beside him, the other scribe has stopped. His brush rests across his palette, and his hands are still, folded loosely in his lap, his gaze lowered, not focused on any one thing, but simply resting. He does not speak. There is no need. The quiet between them is complete. The first scribe continues for a little while longer. His movements are slower now, more deliberate, each mark placed with a sense of gentle completion, as though the day itself is being recorded not just in words, but in the careful way each line is brought to an end. The light fades further. The room grows dim. The shapes within it soften. Details become less clear, though still visible enough to continue for a little while more. A small sound comes from outside, a door closing, footsteps fading, then stillness again. The scribe completes another line. He pauses. He reaches for the red ink one last time. A small mark is placed. Quiet. Final. Then he sets the brush down. Not abruptly, not with any final motion, but gently, as if placing it back into rest, just as the day itself is coming to rest. For a moment he remains where he is, his hands now still, his gaze resting on the papyrus, on the many lines that have been written since the first light of morning, each one a part of the day, each one a quiet record of time that has passed without hurry. The room is dim now. The last light lingers faintly.
Soon it will be gone. The scribe reaches forward and begins to roll the papyrus carefully, guiding it with both hands, ensuring that it folds smoothly, that the written surface is protected, that nothing is disturbed. The motion is slow, careful, practiced. When it is complete, he sets it aside. His tools remain where they are for a moment longer. The palette, the inks, the reeds, all resting now, unused, still. He rises slowly. There is no rush in the movement. He stands, allowing his body to adjust after the long hours of stillness. And then he steps toward the doorway, where the last light of the evening rests softly upon the ground outside. The air is cooler now. The village is quiet. The river continues its steady flow in the distance. And as the first quiet of evening settles fully over the land, the scribe leaves the room behind, carrying with him nothing but the calm rhythm of the day that has passed, a rhythm that will return again with the next light, just as steady, just as quiet, and just as endless.
Outside, the evening has settled gently over the village, not as a sudden change, but as a soft continuation of the day's slow rhythm, where light fades into shadow and sound fades into stillness without any clear line between them. The sky holds a dim, lingering glow near the horizon, while above it, deeper shades begin to gather, stretching quietly across the wide open space, and the first faint stars prepare to appear, though they are not yet fully visible. The scribe steps onto the familiar ground outside his home. The earth beneath his feet has cooled. The air feels lighter now, easier to breathe, carrying with it the quiet scent of water and distant plants, a gentle reminder of the river that continues to move in the darkness beyond. He does not walk far. There is no need. The path is known. The distance is small. Each step is slow and unhurried, as if the movement itself is simply another part of the day's calm unfolding. Around him, others are doing the same. A few figures move quietly along the paths, their shapes softened by the fading light, their voices low, if they speak at all, and for the most part, the village has entered a shared stillness where each person turns inward, toward rest, toward the quiet space that follows a day of steady work. The scribe pauses for a moment. He stands without movement, looking out toward the direction of the river, though he cannot see it clearly now, only sense its presence, its steady flow continuing as it always does, untouched by the coming night. The sound is faint, soft, but it is there, always there. After a short while, he turns and steps inside. The interior of the home is dim. A small lamp has been lit, its flame gentle and steady, casting a warm and quiet glow that reaches only a short distance, leaving the corners of the room in soft shadow. The walls hold the last traces of warmth from the day, but the air is cooler now, more still, more at ease. He moves slowly, without any need to hurry, and sits once more, though not in the same place where he worked, but in a quieter corner, where the tools of the day are no longer before him, where there is nothing to write, nothing to record. His hands rest, his posture softens. There is no task here, no expectation, only rest. For a long moment, he does nothing at all. He simply sits, breathing slowly, allowing the stillness to settle fully around him, as if the quiet of the evening is something that must be received, something that arrives gently and fills the space without effort. Outside, the last sounds of the village fade even further. A distant voice, then silence, a faint movement, then stillness.
The night begins to take hold. The sky darkens. The stars appear, one by one, scattered across the vastness above, quiet and steady, shining without movement. The scribe remains where he is. His day is complete, not finished in a way that ends, but completed in the sense that it has moved through its full course, from the first quiet light of morning to this calm and resting night. There is nothing more to add, nothing more to do. The writing has been done, the lines have been placed, the record exists, and now there is only the quiet that follows. After some time, he shifts slightly, a small movement, gentle and unforced, and prepares for sleep in the same calm manner that has carried him through every part of the day. There is no rush even here. Each action is slow, measured. He lies down. The surface beneath him is simple but familiar, shaped by many nights of rest, and he settles into it without thought, as if his body knows exactly where to go, exactly how to become still. The lamp continues to glow softly for a little while longer. Then it is dimmed. The room grows darker. The shadows deepen, and soon only the faint light from outside remains, filtering gently through the small opening, touching the edges of the space before fading entirely. The scribe closes his eyes. His breathing slows. The steady rhythm that guided his hand throughout the day now rests within him, quiet and unchanged, as if the act of writing has left a calm trace that does not disappear. Outside, the river flows. The stars remain. The village sleeps. And in this deep and gentle quiet, the day comes fully to rest, holding within it every small moment, every careful line, every silent hour that passed without hurry, now settled into memory, as soft and steady as the night itself.
The night deepens, slowly and without interruption, spreading its calm across the land in a way that feels complete, as though everything has found its place within the stillness and nothing more is needed. The village rests. The homes stand quiet beneath the dark sky, their shapes softened by shadow, their walls holding the last traces of warmth from the day, though even that begins to fade as the hours pass. Inside, the scribe sleeps. His breathing is slow and even, rising and falling in a gentle rhythm that mirrors the steady flow of the river beyond the village, a rhythm that continues without thought, without effort, carrying him through the night without disturbance. There are no sudden sounds, no sharp movements, only the quiet presence of the world at rest. Outside, the Nile continues its endless journey, its waters moving in silence beneath the faint light of the stars, touching the edges of the land again and again, as it has done for countless days and nights, unchanged, steady, patient. The air is cool now, cooler than it has been at any point during the day, and it settles gently over the ground, over the homes, over the quiet paths that lie empty beneath the night sky. From time to time, a faint sound passes through the stillness, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of a night creature, a small movement that rises briefly and then disappears again, leaving the silence untouched. The stars above remain clear and steady, scattered across the sky in quiet patterns, their light soft but constant, offering just enough to shape the darkness without breaking it. Hours pass, not marked by sound or by movement, but by the slow turning of the earth beneath the sky, by the gentle shifting of light that cannot yet be seen, only felt in the quiet passage of time. Inside the home, the scribe remains at rest.
There is no thought of the work he has done, no planning for the work to come. Only stillness, only sleep. The body restores itself in silence, just as the land rests beneath the night, preparing without effort for the return of light. Gradually, very gradually, something begins to change. It is not seen at first, it is not heard, but it is there. A subtle shift in the air, a faint lightening at the edge of the horizon, so soft it could almost be imagined. The deepest part of the night begins to pass. The stars remain, but their presence feels slightly different now, as if they are preparing to step back, to make room for something else. The village is still. No doors open, no footsteps move. Everything remains at rest. And yet, the quiet holds a new quality, a sense that something is approaching, not quickly, not suddenly, but with the same patience that has guided every part of the day before. The first hint of dawn begins to form, a pale, distant glow, barely visible, stretching softly along the horizon where the sky meets the land, and though it does not yet bring light to the village, it signals the slow return of the day. Inside, the scribe's breathing remains steady. He does not wake at once. There is no sudden change, only a gradual movement from deep rest toward awareness, a quiet transition that mirrors the slow arrival of the morning itself. The air shifts slightly, still cool, but no longer at its deepest stillness. The faintest sounds begin to return, a small movement outside, a distant stir, something subtle, something gentle. The world is beginning again. The cycle continues. And as the first quiet moments before dawn settle softly over the land, the scribe rests at the edge of waking, held within the same calm rhythm that carried him through the day before, and that will soon carry him once more into another day of quiet, careful writing, where each line will begin again, just as it always has, just as it always will. The faint light at the edge of the horizon grows a little stronger, though it remains soft and distant, as if the day is taking its time to arrive, allowing the night to rest fully before gently stepping forward once more. The stars begin to fade, not all at once, but slowly, one by one, their quiet presence giving way to the pale glow that spreads across the sky, and the deep darkness softens into shades of gray and blue that feel calm and steady. The air is still cool. It carries a freshness that was not present during the warmth of the previous day, a quiet clarity that settles over the land, touching the ground, the homes, the silent paths, and the still surface of the river. Inside the home, the scribe begins to wake. There is no sudden movement, no abrupt return to the world, only a slow and gentle shift as his breathing changes slightly, becoming more aware, more present, as if the body itself recognizes the return of light before the eyes have even opened. For a moment he remains still, resting in that quiet space between sleep and waking, where everything feels soft and unformed, where time does not yet move in clear lines. Then, gradually, he opens his eyes. The room is dim, but no longer dark. A faint light has entered, just enough to reveal the simple shapes around him, the walls, the floor, the place where he rests, all appearing slowly as the day begins to return. He does not rise at once. There is no need. He lies still for a short while longer, allowing the feeling of rest to settle fully, allowing the quiet of the morning to become part of him before the day begins again. Outside, the first small sounds begin to appear. Very faint, very soft. A bird shifts in the distance. Another answers. The river continues its steady movement, its sound now slightly clearer as the silence of the night gives way to the gentle stirring of morning. The scribe sits up slowly. His movements are calm, unhurried, as they were the day before, and the day before that, and as they will be again today. There is no rush to begin, only a quiet understanding that the day will unfold as it always does, one moment at a time. He places his feet on the ground. The surface is cool beneath him, a reminder of the night that has just passed, and he remains there for a moment, seated, still, letting his body fully wake. The light grows a little stronger. The room becomes clearer. The shapes sharpen slightly, though everything still holds a softness, a calm that belongs only to the earliest part of the day. He reaches for water. The motion is simple, familiar. He washes his face, the coolness bringing a gentle clarity, and then he stands, moving toward the doorway where the first light of morning now rests softly upon the ground outside. The village is beginning to wake again, not fully, not quickly, but gently. A door opens somewhere nearby. Footsteps follow, slow and steady. A figure moves along the path, carrying a small vessel, walking toward the river with quiet purpose. The air feels fresh. The sky continues to brighten, though the sun has not yet risen. There is a calm anticipation in the world, a quiet sense that the day is about to begin, though it has not yet fully arrived. The scribe steps outside. He pauses for a moment, just as he did before, standing still, looking toward the horizon where the light is growing, where the sky holds a pale glow that spreads slowly outward. He breathes in. The air is cool, still, gentle. Then, without any rush, he moves to his place. The ground is as it was, smooth, familiar, unchanged. He sits. His posture settles naturally, as if his body remembers exactly how to rest in this position, exactly how to prepare for the work that will follow. He arranges his tools. The wooden palette rests across his lap. The small wells of ink sit ready, dark and still. The roll of papyrus lies beside him, waiting. He takes the reed brush into his hand. It feels the same, light, balanced, worn just enough to be known. For a moment, he does nothing. He simply sits, looking out to the quiet world, at the soft light of morning that has not yet become day, at the river that continues its endless flow, at the village that is only just beginning to stir. This moment is still, complete. Then, gently, he lowers the brush into the ink. He lifts it, and he begins again. The first marks of the new day appear upon the papyrus, just as they did before, quiet and careful, each one placed with steady attention, forming the beginning of another long stretch of writing, another day that will unfold slowly, calmly, and without hurry. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm returns, unchanged, endless. And as the first light of the new day spreads across the land, the scribe writes, just as he always does, allowing the cycle to continue, one quiet line at a time.
The first lines of the new day settle softly onto the papyrus, just as they did before, and the quiet rhythm returns without effort, as though it had never truly stopped, only rested for a while beneath the stillness of the night. The light continues to grow. The pale glow at the horizon deepens into a gentle gold, and the sun begins its slow rise, touching the edge of the world with warmth that spreads carefully across the land, reaching the tops of the trees, the walls of the homes, and the ground where the scribe sits.
He remains steady. His posture is calm. His hand moves with the same quiet certainty as the day before, guided not by thought, but by a long and practiced familiarity that has become part of him. Dip into ink. Lift. Press. Draw. Each mark appears in its place. Each line follows the last. There is no difference between this beginning and the one that came before, and yet, in the smallest way, everything is new again. The air is cool. The sounds of the village begin to return. A door opens. Footsteps pass along the path. A voice speaks softly, then fades. The same patterns repeat, but they do not feel repeated. They feel continuous. The scribe does not look up often. His attention rests on the papyrus, on the forming lines, on the careful placement of each symbol that carries meaning beyond the moment in which it is written. Beside him lies a fresh section of papyrus, still mostly blank, its surface smooth and waiting, and as he writes, he slowly unrolls it, guiding it forward, allowing the space to open before him in a quiet and steady way. The earlier lines begin to form behind his hand. The new lines appear ahead. The movement is constant. The balance remains. From time to time he pauses, just for a breath, just long enough to look at what he has written, to allow the shapes to settle into his awareness, and then he continues, without hesitation, without any need to adjust more than a small detail here or there. The brush moves with quiet precision. The ink settles into the fibers of the papyrus. The marks remain. The river flows nearby, its sound a soft and constant presence, unchanged from the day before, unchanged from the countless days before that. And though the scribe does not turn toward it, it remains part of the moment, part of the quiet life that surrounds his work. The sun rises higher. The light strengthens. The shadows begin to shorten. The air warms slightly, though it still holds the softness of early morning. A child passes nearby again, slower this time, watching the movement of the brush with the same quiet curiosity, pausing just long enough to see the marks appear, then moving on without a word. The scribe continues. He does not react, but the moment exists, part of the gentle flow of the day, part of the quiet life that surrounds his work. The tools remain steady in their places. The palette rests across his lap. The inkwells remain full. The extra reeds lie nearby, untouched for now. Everything is arranged as it should be. Everything remains as it was. Time begins to move forward again. The early stillness shifts into the slow activity of morning, though nothing changes suddenly, nothing breaks the calm, and the scribe remains within his steady rhythm, his hand moving across the papyrus as if guided by something deeper than time itself. Dip into ink. Lift. Press. Draw. The lines grow. The record begins again. And as the sun continues its gentle rise, and the village slowly wakes around him, the scribe writes on, just as he did before, just as he will again, allowing the day to unfold in the same quiet, careful way, one line at a time.
The morning continues to unfold in a slow and even way, as if each moment is placed carefully beside the last, forming a quiet sequence that carries the day forward without effort or strain. The light has grown stronger now. It rests fully upon the land, warm but still gentle, and the long shadows of early morning begin to shorten, drawing closer beneath the trees, the walls, and the small shapes that mark the paths through the village. The scribe remains seated in his place. His posture is unchanged, his focus steady. The papyrus before him now holds the first stretch of the day's writing, the lines forming a calm and ordered beginning, each one connected to the next in a way that feels natural,
unforced. His hand moves in its quiet rhythm. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The motion repeats, not as something mechanical, but as something lived, something that belongs to him as much as breath or thought. Around him, the village begins to take on more presence. The sounds that were once faint now grow slightly clearer, though still soft, still held within the same gentle calm that has carried the morning from its first light. Footsteps pass along the path more often now. A figure walks by carrying a woven basket, moving slowly, the weight balanced carefully, the motion steady and practiced. Another follows, holding a small bundle, speaking briefly to someone just out of view, their voices low and unhurried. The scribe does not turn, but the world moves around him. It always does. He continues to write. The papyrus shifts slightly as he unrolls more of it, guiding the fresh surface into place, allowing the work to extend forward without interruption, while the earlier lines rest behind, already part of the day that has begun. From time to time he pauses, not out of uncertainty, but out of care. His eyes move across the lines he has written, tracing them slowly, ensuring that each mark remains clear, that nothing has been placed without attention. If a small adjustment is needed, he makes it gently, with precision, and then continues, the rhythm resuming without break. The river flows nearby. Its sound is a little clearer now, carried by the movement of the morning air, blending with the quiet activity of the village, forming a soft and steady background that does not demand attention but remains always present. A light breeze passes. It moves through the space with a calm and easy motion, touching the edge of the papyrus, stirring it just slightly, and the scribe places his hand upon it for a moment, holding it steady, then releasing it once the air has settled again. His movements are small, measured. Nothing is wasted, nothing is rushed. The tools remain in their quiet arrangement. The palette rests across his lap. The inkwells remain still, their dark surfaces waiting between each dip of the brush. The extra reeds lie nearby, ready, though not yet needed. The sun rises higher. The warmth deepens just slightly. The air begins to lose a bit of its early coolness, though it still feels comfortable, still carries a softness that has not yet given way to the fuller heat of midday. The scribe continues, line after line, mark after mark. The record grows. A man approaches once more, his footsteps soft but steady, carrying something wrapped in cloth, much like the day before, and he pauses as he nears, waiting for the scribe to finish the line he is working on. The scribe completes the mark. He lifts the brush. He looks up. Their exchange is brief, quiet. The bundle is placed beside him, and with a small nod, the man steps away again, leaving as gently as he came. The scribe turns his attention to the bundle. He unwraps it slowly. Inside, there are more records, more lines written by another hand, more details that must be carried forward, checked, and preserved. He studies them for a moment. His eyes move carefully across the shapes, taking in the differences, the patterns, the meaning behind each line. Then, without hesitation, he begins again. A fresh section of papyrus is brought forward. The brush dips into the ink, and the work continues. The rhythm remains, unbroken. The morning moves steadily onward, not marked by any sudden change, but by the quiet accumulation of moments, each one resting beside the next, forming a day that feels both familiar and new at the same time. And through it all, the scribe writes, just as he has always done, just as he will continue to do, allowing the flow of the day to carry him gently forward, one careful line at a time.
The morning settles more fully into itself, and the gentle movement of the early hours becomes steadier, more continuous, as if the day has found its pace and no longer needs to adjust. The light now rests clearly across the land. It is no longer soft in the way it was at dawn, but it has not yet reached the full weight of midday, holding instead a calm balance between warmth and ease, where everything feels awake, yet unhurried. The scribe continues his work. The new records that were brought to him now lie open beside the papyrus, their lines already studied, their shapes understood, and his hand moves carefully as he begins to copy them, transferring each detail with quiet precision. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The motion remains steady. Each symbol is formed with care, not only to match what is written before him, but to carry it forward clearly, so that it may be read again without confusion, without loss. There is a quiet responsibility in this work, not heavy, not spoken, but always present. What is written must remain true. What is recorded must endure. And so he writes with attention that does not waver. From time to time he glances back to the original record, comparing lines, checking shapes, ensuring that nothing has shifted, nothing has been misunderstood. And when he is certain, he continues, the flow of his writing resuming as if it had never paused. Beside him, the other scribe works in a similar way, though on a different task, his own papyrus filling slowly with lines that mirror the same quiet order, the same careful structure. Their movements do not match exactly, but they share the same rhythm, the same calm pace that defines the work of the day. The village continues around them. The sounds of morning have grown into a steady presence, though still gentle, still distant, never breaking the quiet focus of the room. Footsteps pass, voices rise and fall. A tool strikes softly against something unseen, then stops. All of it blends into a background that remains constant, like the low and steady flow of the river. The scribe adjusts the papyrus again, a small movement, a careful shift. The written portion grows longer behind him, while the space ahead waits patiently, unmarked, ready to receive the next lines. The bundle of records is slowly reduced. One section at a time, its contents are transferred, preserved, carried forward through the steady movement of his hand. A breeze moves through the opening once more. It is slightly warmer now, though still gentle, and it passes through the room without disturbance, touching the edges of the tools, the surface of the papyrus, the skin of the scribes, and then it is gone. The scribe pauses briefly. His hand rests above the page. He looks down at what he has written, allowing his eyes to move slowly across the lines, not searching for error, but confirming what is already known, letting the shapes settle into a quiet understanding. Then he continues. The brush dips again. The line extends. The work deepens. Time passes, though it is not felt in any direct way. There are no marks of hours, no counting of moments, only the gradual unfolding of the day, carried forward by the steady repetition of action. The sun rises higher. The warmth increases just slightly. The shadows shorten. The air begins to hold a fuller presence. But within the shaded space, the change is softened, held at a distance, allowing the work to continue without discomfort, without interruption. The scribe remains steady, his posture relaxed but attentive, his breathing even, his hand moving with quiet certainty. There is no need to hurry, no need to pause beyond what is required.
The work will continue as long as the day allows. And so it does. Line after line, mark after mark, the record grows. The past is carried forward into the present. And in this quiet, careful way, the work of the scribe deepens, settling into the steady flow of the morning as it moves, slowly and gently, toward the fullness of midday.
The morning moves forward in its calm and measured way, and the balance that once held between coolness and warmth begins to shift again, slowly leaning toward the fuller presence of the sun as it rises higher into the open sky. The light grows stronger, not harsh, not sudden, but steady. It rests more firmly upon the land now, touching the ground with a quiet certainty, and the shadows that once stretched long and soft have drawn closer, gathering beneath the shapes that cast them. Inside the shaded room, the change is felt gently. The air has warmed slightly, though it remains comfortable, protected by the thick walls that hold back the deeper heat, allowing the work within to continue without strain. The scribe does not pause. His hand moves as it has since the first light of the day, steady and even, guided by habit, by practice, by a quiet understanding that does not require thought. Dip into ink. Lift. Press. Draw. The rhythm continues, unbroken. The records before him are nearly transferred now. The bundle that was once full has grown lighter, its contents gradually carried onto the fresh papyrus, each line preserved with care, each detail placed with quiet precision. He glances at the remaining portion, only a few sections left. He studies them for a moment, his eyes moving slowly across the shapes, and then he returns to his work, the brush lowering once more as the next line begins. Beside him, the other scribe continues as well, though his movements have taken on the same slight slowing that comes as the day approaches its center, where the energy of morning begins to settle into something more still, more contained. They do not speak. The silence between them remains steady, shared, comfortable. Outside, the village continues its gentle motion. The sounds are familiar now, part of a pattern that repeats each day, footsteps passing along the same paths, voices rising briefly before fading again, small tasks being carried out without hurry, without urgency. A faint sound of grinding reaches the room again, the slow and steady motion of grain being prepared, its rhythm soft and repetitive, blending into the background without drawing attention. The river flows, always the same, always present. Its quiet movement continues beneath everything else, a steady line that does not change, even as the day moves forward around it. The scribe shifts the papyrus once more. The roll has grown longer behind him, the written portion now carrying the weight of many hours, while the remaining blank space ahead becomes smaller, more defined, as the work of the morning approaches its natural pause. He reaches briefly for the red ink. A small mark is placed at the beginning of a new section, a quiet signal, a gentle structure within the flow of writing. Then back to black, back to the steady lines. His hand moves with the same calm certainty, each symbol formed clearly, each line placed carefully. There is no sign of strain, no sign of impatience, only continuation. A breeze passes again, slightly warmer now, though still soft, and it moves through the opening with a quiet ease, touching the edges of the papyrus, stirring it lightly before settling once more. The scribe steadies it with a small motion of his hand, then continues. Time passes.
Not quickly, not slowly, simply as it does. The light shifts further, the warmth deepens. The sounds of the village begin to soften once more as the approach of midday brings with it a natural slowing, a quiet easing of movement as the air grows heavier and the desire for shade becomes stronger. The scribe feels this change, though it does not alter his work. He adjusts slightly. A small shift in posture, a gentle repositioning of the papyrus, and then the rhythm continues. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The final sections of the bundle are nearly complete now, each line transferred, each detail preserved. The work of the morning approaches its natural close, though not in a way that ends, only in a way that pauses, making space for the next quiet stretch of the day. The sun rises a little higher. The shadows draw closer still. The air holds more warmth. And within this gentle nearing of midday, the scribe remains steady, calm, and present, his hand moving across the papyrus as it has all morning, allowing the day to continue unfolding, one careful line at a time.
The day reaches its quiet center once more, not with any clear signal, but with a gradual settling, as if everything has come to rest within itself, held in a calm balance where movement slows and sound softens. The sun now stands high above, its light steady and full, spreading evenly across the land, leaving little shadow behind, and the warmth that fills the air is deeper now, not harsh, but present in a way that encourages stillness. Outside, the village grows quiet again. The steady motion of the morning fades into longer pauses. Fewer footsteps pass along the paths, fewer voices rise. Those who move do so slowly, seeking the shade, allowing the heat of the day to pass without resistance. Inside, the scribe has shifted back into the deeper shelter of the room. The walls hold the coolness as best they can, softening the warmth, creating a space where the air feels more gentle, more contained. He sits as he did before, his posture steady, his tools arranged in their quiet order. The papyrus rests before him, now filled with many lines from the morning's work, the earlier sections lying behind, the remaining space ahead waiting without urgency. For a brief moment he does not write. He sits still, allowing the transition into this quieter part of the day to settle around him, feeling the difference in the air, the deeper stillness that now surrounds everything. There is no need to hurry, no need to continue at once. This pause belongs to the day as much as the writing does. After a short while, he reaches for the brush again. He dips it into the ink, lifts it, and begins. The rhythm returns. Dip, lift, press, draw. Each movement is slightly slower now, not from fatigue, but from the natural pacing of midday, where everything seems to stretch, where moments feel longer, where time itself feels less defined. The lines continue to form, careful, even, unbroken. Beside him, the other scribe works as well, though with longer pauses between movements, his hand resting more often, his gaze lingering over the page, as if the stillness of the day has entered into the work itself. They remain silent. The quiet between them deepens. It becomes something that holds the space, something that allows the work to exist without interruption, without distraction. A small clay cup rests nearby. The scribe reaches for it slowly, lifting it with care, taking a measured drink of water, the coolness offering a gentle contrast to the warmth of the air. And then he sets it back down in the same place, the motion calm and precise. The brush returns to the page. The writing continues. Outside, the sounds are faint, almost absent, a distant movement here and there, a soft murmur carried briefly on the air. But mostly,
there is stillness, the kind of stillness that does not feel empty, but full, as if the world is resting within itself, gathering quiet strength. The river continues to flow, unchanged. Its steady motion remains a quiet presence beneath everything else, a constant line that does not pause, even as the day slows around it. The scribe adjusts the papyrus again, a small movement, a gentle shift. The space before him remains sufficient. There is no concern for how much remains, only the next line, the next mark, the next careful motion. Time passes in this quiet way, unmeasured, unspoken. The sun holds its place, the air remains warm, the light steady, and within this still center of the day, the scribe continues his work, his hand moving with calm precision, his mind at ease, allowing each line to form without hurry, without strain, as the hours of midday rest gently around him, holding everything in a soft and unbroken calm.
The stillness of midday begins almost imperceptibly to loosen its hold, not all at once, but in a quiet and gradual way, as though the day itself is taking a slow breath and preparing to move again. The sun remains high, but its presence begins to soften at the edges. The light, while still bright, carries a gentler tone. The air, though warm, begins to shift, allowing small movements to return, faint currents that pass through the space without urgency. Inside the room, the change is subtle. The scribe does not look up, but he feels it. It is there in the way the air touches his skin, in the slight easing of the warmth, in the quiet sense that the deepest stillness has begun to pass. His work continues. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains steady, though the space between each movement seems to open just slightly, as if time itself has become a little more fluid, a little less contained. Beside him, the other scribe shifts. A small movement, a gentle straightening of the back, a quiet adjustment of position, as if the body, after resting within stillness, is ready to move again, though slowly, without haste. The writing resumes with a little more continuity now. The pauses grow shorter. The flow becomes smoother. The lines extend once more with quiet consistency. Outside, the village begins to stir again. Footsteps return to the paths, soft but more frequent than before. A voice rises in low conversation, carried briefly through the air before fading again. Somewhere the faint sound of work begins once more, a tool moving, a task resumed, all of it blending into the gentle rhythm of the afternoon. The scribe reaches for the red ink briefly. A small mark is placed, a quiet division, a new section begins. Then, without pause, he returns to the black ink, and the steady lines continue to form. The papyrus shifts again beneath his hand, another small movement, another careful adjustment. The written portion grows longer. The blank space ahead remains, though smaller now, gradually giving way to the quiet order of ink and form. A breeze passes through the opening, slightly cooler now. It moves gently across the room, touching the edge of the papyrus, the surface of the tools, the hands of the scribes, and for a moment the air feels lighter, more open, before settling again. The scribe steadies the page with a light touch, then continues. Time moves forward, not marked, not counted, only felt in the quiet unfolding of the day. The light begins to shift once more. The shadows, which had drawn close beneath the objects around them, now begin to stretch again, slowly extending outward, lengthening across the ground outside, marking the subtle return of movement within the sky. The scribe does not watch this, but it exists,
part of the same gentle flow, part of the same quiet passage. His hand continues, line after line, mark after mark. The work deepens once more, not in effort, but in continuity, as if the day, having rested at its center, now moves forward again with a calm and steady purpose. The sounds outside grow slightly fuller, still soft, still distant, but present. Life resumes its gentle rhythm, and within this quiet release from stillness, the scribe remains steady, his hand moving across the papyrus with the same calm precision, allowing the afternoon to unfold around him, just as the morning did, just as the evening will, one careful line at a time.
The afternoon continues to open gently, as if the day, having passed through its quiet center, now moves forward with a renewed softness, not hurried, not strong, but steady and calm in its return to motion. The light has begun to change again. Though the sun is still high, its intensity has softened just enough to allow the air to feel more open, more breathable, and the long pause of midday gives way to a quiet and natural flow that spreads through the village and into the spaces where work continues. Inside the room, the scribe remains as he has been, seated, steady, focused. The papyrus before him now carries the weight of many hours, its surface filled with lines that stretch back through the day, each one placed with care, each one part of a record that grows slowly but without interruption. His hand moves, dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm continues. It has never left, it has only shifted, softened, adjusted itself to the quiet changes of the day, and now it moves again with a slightly fuller pace, as if responding to the gentle return of life outside. Beside him, the other scribe has also settled back into his work, his movements now more continuous, his pauses shorter, his brush moving with a renewed steadiness that mirrors the easing of the afternoon air. They remain silent, the quiet between them unchanged, a shared presence, a shared rhythm. Outside, the village carries on. Footsteps move along the paths with a calm regularity. Voices rise and fall, still soft, still measured, but more frequent now, as the people return to their tasks, to their quiet exchanges, to the steady flow of daily life. A faint sound of water being poured reaches the room, a vessel placed down, a brief moment of conversation, then stillness again. The scribe continues. He reaches for the bundle of records once more, though it has grown much smaller now, nearly empty, and he unfolds the last of its contents, smoothing the papyrus gently before him, studying the final lines that remain to be copied. His eyes move slowly across them, carefully, patiently. Then, as always, he begins. The brush dips. The line forms. Each symbol is placed with attention, not only to match what is written, but to carry it forward clearly, to ensure that nothing is lost in the movement from one page to the next. The work is quiet, but it holds meaning. It preserves what would otherwise fade. And so it continues. The sun lowers just slightly, not enough to notice at once, but enough that the light begins to take on a softer tone, a subtle warmth that spreads gently across the land. The shadows begin, once again, to stretch, slowly, quietly. The scribe adjusts the papyrus, another small movement, another careful shift. The blank space ahead grows smaller still. The written portion now extends far behind him, holding the steady record of the day from its earliest lines to this present moment. A breeze passes through the opening again, cooler now, carrying with it the faint scent of the river and the distant earth. It lingers for a moment, then fades. The scribe pauses briefly. His hand rests above the page. He looks over the lines he has just written, his gaze calm, his attention steady, allowing the shapes to settle fully before continuing. Then, without hesitation, he resumes. Dip, lift, press, draw. The final sections of the bundle are nearly complete, each line transferred, each detail preserved. The work of the afternoon continues, not as something separate from the morning, but as a continuation of the same quiet flow, the same steady rhythm that carries the day from beginning to end. Outside, the sounds remain soft, the movement steady, the world unfolds without urgency. And within this gentle return of the afternoon's flow, the scribe remains exactly as he has been, present and calm, his hand moving across the papyrus with quiet purpose, allowing the day to continue, one careful line at a time.
The afternoon moves onward with quiet certainty, and the light, though still warm and present, begins to shift in a way that can be felt more clearly now, as the sun slowly lowers and the first long shadows of the later day begin to return. They stretch across the ground outside, reaching gently along the paths and between the homes, forming soft lines that grow longer with each passing moment, marking the quiet passage of time without needing to be noticed. Inside, the change is softer. The brightness that once filled the room has begun to ease, settling into a more balanced glow where light and shadow rest together in calm proportion, neither strong nor faint, but steady and even. The scribe continues his work. The final sections of the bundle now lie before him, nearly complete, their contents slowly carried onto the papyrus through the same careful movements that have guided his hand throughout the day. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains. It does not tire. It does not change. It simply continues as it always has. Beside him, the other scribe pauses once more, resting his hands briefly, allowing a small moment of stillness to pass before returning to his own work, his movements slow and deliberate, matching the gentle easing of the afternoon. The silence between them remains whole, unbroken, a quiet presence that holds the space without effort. Outside, the village continues its steady rhythm. Footsteps pass more frequently now than during midday, though still without haste, and voices rise in soft conversation, carried lightly on the air before fading again into the calm. A distant sound of laughter appears for a moment, brief and gentle, then disappears, leaving the quiet intact. The river continues to flow, its sound steady, unchanging, a constant beneath the shifting hours of the day. The scribe shifts the papyrus once more. The roll has grown long behind him, the written lines now stretching far beyond where he began, while the space ahead becomes smaller, more defined as the work approaches another natural pause. He studies the final lines from the bundle. His eyes move slowly across them, carefully, patiently. There is no urgency, only attention. Then he lowers the brush again. The line continues, each mark placed with the same quiet care, the same steady hand that has guided him since the first light of morning. The sun lowers a little more. The warmth softens. The air begins to cool just slightly, enough to bring a sense of ease, a quiet relief that moves gently through the space. A breeze enters once more, cooler than before, carrying with it the scent of the river and the distant fields, and it lingers for a moment before passing on, leaving the air calm again. The scribe steadies the papyrus with a light touch, then continues. The final lines of the bundle are now nearly complete. Only a small portion remains. The work of copying, of preserving, of carrying forward what has been written elsewhere comes slowly toward its end, not with a sense of completion, but with the quiet understanding that this part of the task has been fulfilled. He reaches for the red ink. A small mark is placed, a quiet signal, a gentle division within the growing record. Then back to black, back to the steady lines. The last entries are written, carefully, without haste.
The bundle beside him now lies empty, its purpose fulfilled, its contents now part of the new record that stretches across the papyrus before him. The scribe pauses. His hand rests above the page. He looks over the work, not with pride, not with judgment, but with quiet recognition. The lines exist, the record remains. After a moment, he continues, adding new lines beyond what was brought to him, extending the record further, allowing the work to flow naturally into the next section, as it always does. Outside, the shadows grow longer. The light softens further. The afternoon begins its slow movement toward evening. And within this quiet return of lengthening shadows, the scribe remains steady and calm, his hand moving across the papyrus with the same gentle rhythm, allowing the day to continue its quiet unfolding, one careful line at a time.
The light continues its slow descent, softening more with each passing moment, and the warmth that once filled the air begins to ease, giving way to a gentler coolness that moves quietly through the village and into the shaded spaces where the day's work still continues. The shadows stretch longer now. They reach across the ground in calm, unbroken lines, touching the walls of the homes, the paths between them, and the edges of the riverbank, where the water reflects the changing sky in soft, shifting tones. Inside, the room has grown dimmer. The light that enters is no longer strong, but rests gently upon the surfaces it reaches, leaving the rest in a quiet and steady shadow. The scribe continues to write. His hand moves as it has all day, steady, careful, unhurried. The papyrus before him is now nearly filled, its surface carrying the full stretch of the day's work, from the earliest lines of morning to the present moment, each section marked with quiet precision, each part connected to the next in a continuous flow. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The rhythm remains, though it has softened, as if it too is aware of the approaching end of the day, allowing a little more space between each movement, a little more stillness within the flow. Beside him, the other scribe has slowed again. His brush rests for longer moments, his posture relaxes slightly. The quiet between them deepens once more, becoming something that feels almost complete, as if the work of the day has already begun to settle into rest. Outside, the village gathers itself. The sounds of movement continue, though they are fewer now, more scattered, as people begin to return to their homes, their tasks drawing to a close, their voices lowering as the evening approaches. A faint sound of water being carried reaches the room, a soft exchange of words, then stillness again. The scribe pauses at the end of a line. He lifts the brush. His eyes move slowly across the marks he has just made, following them with quiet attention, allowing the shapes to settle, to exist fully before continuing. He reaches for the red ink. A small mark is placed, a gentle division, another quiet structure within the record. Then back to black. The writing continues. The remaining space on the papyrus is now small. Each new line brings him closer to the natural end of this day's work, though there is no sense of rushing toward it, no desire to finish quickly, only the steady continuation. A breeze moves through the opening again, cooler now, softer, carrying with it the faint scent of the evening air, a quiet signal that the day is beginning to release its hold. The scribe feels it briefly, then returns fully to the page. The final lines begin to take shape, carefully, deliberately, each symbol placed with the same attention as the first, though now there is a subtle sense of completion within the movement, a quiet awareness that the work is drawing to its natural pause. The light fades further, the room grows dim, the details soften, but still there is enough to continue for a little while longer. Outside, the shadows deepen, the sky shifts toward softer tones, the village quiets, And within this gentle nearing of the day's end, the scribe remains steady, his hand moving across the final space of the papyrus, allowing the last lines to form in the same calm and careful way as the light slowly fades around him and the evening begins to settle once more.
The evening settles more fully now, and the light that remains has become soft and faint, resting gently upon the edges of the world, as if it is preparing to slip away without sound. Inside the room, the dimness deepens. The shapes of things are still visible, but softened, as though they are slowly blending into the quiet that surrounds them, and the surface of the papyrus holds the last traces of light, just enough for the work to continue for a few moments more. The scribe's hand moves with great care, slower now, more deliberate. Each motion carries a quiet awareness, not of ending, but of reaching a natural pause, where the work has filled the space it was given, where the lines have extended as far as they need to for this day. Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The final lines begin to take form, each symbol placed with steady attention, each mark clear, nothing hurried, nothing forced. The papyrus is nearly complete. Only a small space remains, and the scribe guides his hand across it with the same calm precision that has carried him from the first light of morning to this fading hour. Beside him, the other scribe has stopped again. His brush rests quietly. His hands are still. He sits in silence, allowing the day to settle, his presence calm and unbroken, as if the quiet itself has become part of the work. Outside, the village grows quieter still. The last movements of the day pass gently. Footsteps fade. Voices soften. A door closes somewhere in the distance, the sound low and brief, then gone. The air is cooler now, still, calm. The river continues its steady flow, its sound faint but constant, carrying through the evening as it always does, unchanged by the fading light. The scribe completes another line. He lifts the brush. He pauses. His eyes move slowly across what he has written, tracing the final shapes, allowing them to settle into place, to become part of the whole. There is no urgency, no need to move quickly, only a quiet recognition of what has been done. He reaches for the red ink. One final mark is placed, small, precise, a gentle signal that this section has reached its end. Then, once more, he returns to the black ink. There is just enough space for a few more lines, and so he continues. The brush moves carefully, the marks appear, the space is filled, and then, without any sudden motion, without any clear dividing line, the writing comes to rest. The final line is complete. The scribe lifts the brush. He does not begin again. For a moment he remains still, his hand resting lightly above the papyrus, his gaze calm. The work is not finished in the sense of being closed, but it has reached its place for this day, its natural pause within the endless cycle of writing that will continue again with the next morning. The room is dim now. The last light lingers faintly. Soon it will fade entirely. The scribe lowers the brush. Gently, quietly, he sets it down. The tools remain where they are, still, at rest. He reaches forward and begins to roll the papyrus. The motion is slow, careful. Each turn of the roll is guided with attention, ensuring that the surface is protected, that the lines remain undisturbed, that the work of the day is held safely within its form. When it is complete, he sets it aside. The room grows darker. The shapes soften further.
The quiet deepens. Outside, the evening has nearly settled into night, and within this fading light, where the last lines have been written and the work has come gently to rest, the scribe remains still for a moment longer, allowing the calm of the day to settle fully as everything moves, slowly and quietly, toward the silence of night once more.
The last of the light fades quietly, slipping away without any sharp edge, leaving behind a soft and steady dimness that settles across the room and the village beyond, as if the day has gently withdrawn into rest. The scribe remains seated for a short while after finishing his work. There is no movement at first, no immediate shift, only stillness. His hands rest lightly. His gaze lingers on the rolled papyrus beside him, though in the dim light its details are no longer clear, only its presence remains, holding within it the careful work of the entire day. The air has cooled further now. It feels calm, balanced. The warmth of the day has faded into something softer, something easier to breathe, and with it comes a quiet sense of release, as though the effort of the hours has been gently set down. Beside him, the other scribe rises slowly. His movement is unhurried, almost blending into the surrounding stillness, and after a brief pause, he steps away, leaving the room without a word, his presence fading as quietly as it had remained throughout the day. The first scribe does not follow at once. He remains where he is for a moment longer, allowing the silence to deepen, allowing the transition from work into rest to take place without interruption. Outside, the village has nearly come to stillness. A few distant sounds remain, a faint voice, a soft step, but they are scattered, fading quickly into the growing quiet of evening. The river continues its steady movement, its sound low and constant, a quiet thread that runs through the night just as it does through the day. After a time, the scribe begins to move, slowly, gently. He gathers his tools, not with urgency, but with care, placing each one in its proper place, ensuring that nothing is left unsettled, that everything is ready for the next day when the work will begin again. The palette is set aside, the reeds are placed together, the inkwells remain still, each object returns to rest. When all is in order, he rises. His movement is calm, measured, as if even this simple act is part of the same quiet rhythm that has guided the entire day. He steps toward the doorway. Outside, the sky is now deep with night, though a faint glow still lingers low on the horizon, a soft reminder of the light that has just passed. The first stars are clear now, scattered across the sky, steady and quiet. The air is cool, still. The village rests. He steps out into the evening. His feet meet the ground with soft, familiar contact, and for a moment he pauses, just as he has at other times, standing without movement, allowing the quiet of the night to settle around him. There is no need to go far, no need to do more. The day has already given all that it needed to. After a short while, he walks slowly along the path, the movement unhurried, his form blending into the dimness, becoming part of the same quiet landscape that surrounds him. He returns to his home. The interior is dim, lit by a small, steady flame that casts a warm and gentle glow, creating soft shadows along the walls. He enters without sound. There is no conversation, no disturbance, only the quiet presence of evening. He sits once more, though not to work. There is no papyrus before him now, no brush, no ink, only rest. His hands remain still, his posture softens.
The rhythm of the day, which once moved through his hands, now settles within him, calm and even, like the steady flow of the river beyond the walls. Time passes quietly, unnoticed. The flame flickers gently. The shadows move slightly, then settle again. And within this gentle closing of the day, the scribe allows himself to rest, fully and without effort, as the night deepens around him and the world returns once more to stillness, holding within it the quiet memory of everything that has passed.
The night settles fully now, deeper than before, as the last traces of evening fade into a calm and steady darkness that rests gently over the village, the river, and the quiet paths that lie empty beneath the sky. Inside the home, the small flame continues to glow softly, its light warm but limited, reaching only a short distance before dissolving into shadow, and within that gentle circle of light, the scribe remains seated, still and at ease. There is no movement for a time, no task to complete, no lines to write, only rest. His breathing is slow and even, matching the quiet rhythm that has carried him through the entire day, now softened into something deeper, something that belongs fully to the night. Outside, the world is quiet. The sounds that once marked the hours have faded almost entirely, leaving only the faintest traces of life, a distant shift, a soft echo of movement, and beneath it all, the steady flow of the river, unchanged and unending. The sky above is clear. The stars are fully visible now, scattered across the wide expanse, their light gentle and constant, offering a quiet presence that does not disturb the stillness below. The air is cool. It moves slowly, if at all, settling softly against the walls of the homes, along the ground, through the open spaces where the warmth of the day has long since faded. The scribe lowers himself to rest. His movements are calm, unhurried. He lies down upon the familiar surface, allowing his body to settle naturally, without adjustment, without effort, as if the shape of rest is already known to him. The flame remains lit for a short while longer. Its light flickers gently, casting soft, shifting shadows that move slowly along the walls, then still again. After some time, the flame is dimmed. The room grows darker. The shadows deepen, and soon only the faint light from outside remains, filtering in softly, touching the edges of the space before fading into quiet. The scribe closes his eyes. His breathing slows further. The rhythm becomes softer, quieter. There is no thought of the work that has been done, no thought of the work to come, only stillness, only rest. The village sleeps. Each home holds its own quiet, its own small world of rest and stillness, all connected by the same calm night that stretches across the land without interruption. The river flows, always the same, always present. Its movement continues through the darkness, steady and unchanged, a quiet reminder of time that does not stop, even as everything else rests. Hours pass, not marked, not measured, only carried forward by the slow turning of the earth beneath the sky. The stars remain, their light steady, their presence calm, and within this deep quiet of night, everything settles fully, as if the world itself has come to rest, holding within it the memory of the day that has passed and the quiet promise of the day that will come again. The scribe sleeps, and the rhythm continues,
even in stillness, even in silence, waiting gently for the first light that will return once more, just as it always does, just as it always will.
The night continues in its deep and steady calm, holding the world in a silence that feels complete, as though nothing more is needed, nothing more is expected, and everything rests exactly where it belongs. The hours pass without sound, without measure. The sky remains wide and open, filled with quiet stars that shine without movement, their light soft and distant, unchanged by the slow turning of the earth beneath them. The river flows, always. Its gentle motion continues through the darkness, touching the edges of the land, moving past the sleeping village, carrying with it the quiet presence of time that does not stop, that does not hurry, that simply moves forward. Inside the home, the scribe rests. His breathing is slow, even, unbroken. There is no sign of the long hours of work that filled the day, no trace of effort, no weight carried forward into this moment. Only stillness, only sleep. The night deepens, then begins, almost without notice, to soften, a change so slight it could be missed. The darkness remains, but it loosens just slightly, as if preparing to give way once more. Far in the distance, at the edge of the world, a faint light begins again. Not seen at first, only felt. A quiet shift, a gentle return. The first breath of another day approaches. The stars begin to fade, slowly, one by one, their light retreating as the sky changes from deep darkness to soft gray, then to a pale and quiet blue. The air remains cool, still, but there is something new within it now, something that was not there before, a sense of beginning, though nothing has yet begun. Inside, the scribe stirs, not fully awake, not fully asleep, resting in that calm space between, where the world has not yet taken shape, where time has not yet started to move in clear lines. His breathing changes slightly, a small shift, a quiet return to awareness. The light grows, very slowly, very gently. It touches the edges of the room, revealing shapes that emerge from shadow, the walls, the floor, the simple space that holds the quiet rhythm of his life. He opens his eyes. There is no sudden movement, no rush to rise, only a calm and steady return. For a moment he remains still, allowing the morning to arrive fully, allowing the quiet to settle around him once more, just as it did the day before. Outside, the first faint sounds begin again, a distant bird, a soft movement along the path, the river, steady as always. The world begins again. He sits up slowly. His movements are the same, unchanged, familiar. He places his feet upon the ground. The surface is cool. The air is fresh. The day has returned. He rises, steps toward the doorway. The horizon holds a pale and gentle light. The sun has not yet risen, but its presence is near, waiting just beyond the edge of sight. He steps outside, pauses, breathes, the same quiet moment, the same stillness. Then, without thought, without hesitation, he moves to his place. He sits, arranges his tools. The palette rests across his lap. The ink waits. The papyrus lies beside him, blank once more, smooth and open, ready to receive the lines of another day. He takes the reed brush into his hand. It feels the same, always the same. For a moment he does nothing. He simply sits, looking at the quiet world as it begins again, at the soft light spreading across the land, at the stillness that holds everything in place. Then, gently, he dips the brush into the ink. He lifts it. He lowers it to the surface of the papyrus, and he begins.
Dip into ink, lift, press, draw. The first line appears, calm, steady, unhurried. And as the sun rises once more, as the light returns, as the village begins its quiet movement, the scribe continues his work, just as he always has, just as he always will, allowing the rhythm of the day to carry forward without end, without conclusion, without any need to stop. The story does not close, it does not finish, it simply continues, soft and endless, like the flow of the river, like the quiet return of light, like the steady hand of the scribe moving gently across the page, one line at a time, forever resting within the calm and unbroken rhythm of the world.